Since the creation of the first computer in 1996, technology has been evolving at rapid rates to the point that in the modern world, we're surrounded by state of the art technology and have access to all forms and kinds of news and data at the tap of a button. Because of all of this, one would assume we're truly living in a new era of information where every form of media is reliable and the world is a communicational utopia. Well, that's not exactly the case. The current media uses modern technology as an ever expanding platform to spread content. And whilst a lot of this content is factual and true, a lot of the current media spreads fake information and fake news for a multitude of reasons, spanning from pure accident to even malicious purposes. Fake news has been on a steady rise since almost 2009, and one would assume major action is being taken against it. But a lot of the people don't even know what fake news is, let alone how it affects us, world conflicts, and how to identify this fake news. But don't fret, we're here to tell you exactly what it is. We'll discuss the consequences of misinformation and fake news regarding conflicts around the world and consider perspectives from people of different age groups, backgrounds, and even countries. So, without any more delay, let's begin and learn what fake news truly is.
Misinformation and fake news are pieces of information that are verifiably incorrect. Such news can be deliberately written and distributed, intended to distort people's perception of the truth and mislead them. These stories may include some truth, but are not totally accurate.
Now, there are benefits and disadvantages to fake news, but the cons significantly outweigh the pros. Fake news can be used to regulate public opinion in times of instability. For example, if country A is going through a crisis and some confidential information is leaked, fake news can be used to mediate public opinion and not worsen the country's current state. Sort of like a white lie. Fake news can also be used for entertainment purposes. However, we believe that the externalities and side effects of fake news are much worse, as it can defame people, cause social unrest, spread harmful perceptions and beliefs, and even cost lives. These cons worsen the quality of life people have and makes the internet and social media a harmful environment. It also makes people unwilling to seek out news as they now fear being manipulated.
To find out how fake news and misinformation are interpreted by the public, we sent out a questionnaire, not only to our classmates, but also to some of our parents' friends and colleagues to get multiple demographic opinions. Our sample size was around 90 people. They were from countries like the UK, USA, Canada, Australia, and Pakistan, with the majority of our responses coming in from India and the Philippines. 90% of the people agreed that fake news and misinformation exist in the media. Only 50% were sure how to identify it. 31% were unsure, and the rest had no idea. When asked about the methods of identification, the majority believed that inquiring about the source of the information was the best method. Many also believed that focusing on the biases and the purpose of the news, that is, the reason why the information exists, is also a good method of finding the accuracy of the news being reported.
We sent out a questionnaire specifically shared with those residing in Gurugram to gain a local perspective on our issue. We also interviewed our teacher and a 7th grader to gain perspectives of different age groups. Gurugram has educated individuals with a literacy rate of 84.4%. This perhaps plays a role in the answers we received. All of them agreed that there is misinformation or fake news present in the media. Additionally, we asked whether they believed fake news and misinformation played a role in the modern conflicts of the world. 67% of the people were unsure and only 30% were sure. To gather an understanding of whether people can feel that the socioeconomic background, political views or beliefs, and different cultures can affect one's interpretation of the news, we asked our interviewees. To that, our teacher responded with,
So I would like to use one of these documentaries that came out on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, which talked about how a person thinking is being fed the content that they want to believe in. So I feel like the socioeconomic background obviously tends to make people believe in news that favors their development, that favors their growth, and that just makes sustainability possible for them. In terms of political inclinations, I feel like that is where fake news thrives. A lot of people are blind supporters of their certain parties and they tend to lose objectivity with time. So whenever they see a news favoring their party, they tend to believe it more, they tend to share it more. and on the other hand, any criticism that comes for their party or for as such, those same people tend to ignore it. So I definitely feel that the socioeconomic background and their political inclinations is being, used very effectively by whatever propagating materials you have on you. So thank you very much.
As found from my research, most people living in Gurugram consume their news through newspapers, social media, and conversations with people. Through the latter two, it's easier to spread misinformation and difficult to find the reliability of the report. Even though the majority believe that timelines of the events and sources of information are the best ways of identifying fake news, they are doubtful of how to identify it, as 40% claim that they were unsure and 20% had no clue.
The national perspective, India's literacy rate is 74.04%. Due to poverty and the concentration of illiterate individuals, it is easy to sway public opinion. According to data, false news and disinformation are increasing in India. The IFLA journal analyzed 9,657 instances of incorrect information broadcast on social media between January 1st, 2020 and March 1st, 2021. And they found out that India was the nation responsible for the most inaccurate reports. In the last year, India has been exposed to a great deal of incorrect information. For instance, the first few months of 2021 were dominated by an upsurge in false claims regarding the farmers' protests. Some used to defame opposing political parties and influence opinions of the public, being manipulated by tweets and information floating around defaming one another. The future of India can be at risk. Hence, it's of utmost importance to spread that fake news exists and teach how one can reduce the authenticity and truthfulness of the information.
The Philippines has one of the world's most active social media populations, due to which fake news and misinformation can gravely affect the opinions of Filipinos. The 2016 Philippine election was influenced in large part by false information propagated by fake news outlets. Some candidates benefited from a disproportionate amount of complimentary fake news compared to their opponents. The propaganda spread across Filipino social media, including fake endorsements from prominent public figures like Pope Francis and Angela Merkel, even going as far as allocating an estimated $200,000 to dedicated trolls in Rodrigo Duterte's campaign. Through our questionnaire, we received the local public opinion on their country, where most acknowledged the fact that misinformation exists but were still confused on what to believe.
For another global perspective, we researched about Syria in order to misrepresent the facts surrounding the Syrian war and discourage international action. A network of more than 24 conspiracy theorists, frequently supported by a concerted Russian campaign, posted thousands of disinformation tweets according to new research. The Institute of Strategic Dialogue, also known as ISD, identified a set of social media accounts, persons, organizations, and venues that spread false information about the war, with around 1.8 million people paying attention to what they said. One of the misleading narratives that were propagated misrepresented the White Helmets, a volunteer group that assists in the evacuation of Syrian citizens.
Another example is one of Russia. Russia has recently been undergoing a conflict with Ukraine, and given that fake news is a widespread and pernicious problem, one can easily predict that fake news has had its effects and externalities on this conflict. Recently, Russian president placed strict regulations against fake news due to its almost disease-like spread during its conflict with Russia. According to reports, it will contain any references to Russia's conflict with Ukraine that refer to it as an invasion, contradicting the Kremlin's insistence that it is only a special military operation. One example of the spread of this fake news is the ghost of Kiev, a supposed fighter ace who is said to have destroyed almost 6 Russian planes in a matter of hours at the outset of Russia's conflict. Video game footage as well as footage of outdated and old military practice sessions were shared, which garnered millions of views on social media. The Ukrainian government later confirmed that the ghost is nothing but a myth.
Our aim was to raise awareness about false news and misinformation that distort people's perspectives of events and perhaps worsen the situation around the world, as well as suggest methods of identifying such reports in the media. There are a few ways to determine if the material you're reading is authentic. However, you can never be certain of its reliability. The first step would be to identify the source of the material. Most reputable websites, such as those of governments and international organizations like United Nations, are usually trustworthy. The second is to identify a bias. Individuals are prone to alter information to forward their own agendas. Hence, government websites may also occasionally misreport some news. The timeline of the events and the reason the information exists can also be looked at.
This concludes our outcome. We hope that you have been able to form your own opinions and have an understanding of the role that fake news plays in the escalation of political tensions. By completing this project, we have all grown informed perspectives about fake news and been aware of the grave problems it causes in the modern world. We hope to have achieved our goal of promoting awareness about fake news and misinformation that distorts people's viewpoints of events and worsens the global situation, as well as assisting you in detecting the aforementioned. Thank you very much for your time.